What if the truth isn't what you've been told your whole life? What if it's something you have to find for yourself, even if it means you're the only one standing against, well, pretty much everyone? This is the story of a blueprint for finding that truth, a set of rules forged in fire, and name for the man who lived by them. We're talking about the Galileo Rule, and it teaches us one simple, powerful lesson. The only real authority is evidence. The year is 1610, and a man named Galileo Galilei, a professor and astronomer, is up against a scientific consensus that has stood firm for 1,400 years, that the Earth is the stationary center of the entire universe. Now, you have to understand, this wasn't just some textbook theory. It was the bedrock of reality. This model, where the sun, the moon, the planets, all the stars revolved around us, it was woven into philosophy, into religion, into everyday life. To question it wasn't just bad science, it was to question the very order of the cosmos.
And yet, in the quiet of the night, Galileo pointed this new invention of his, the telescope, towards the heavens, and he saw things that just didn't fit the story. He saw that the moon wasn't some perfect celestial sphere. It was covered in mountains and craters, just like Earth. He saw 4 little lights orbiting Jupiter, which proved that not everything revolved around our world. And maybe the biggest bombshell of all, he saw that Venus had phases, just like our moon, something that was completely impossible if everything orbited the Earth. That's when he knew. This ancient truth, it wasn't a truth at all. It was just a very old story. And that 1,400-year-old truth was about to die.
So here's how we're going to break down this revolution. First, we'll dig into that 1,400-year-old lie he was up against. Then we'll see how his entire philosophy was forged in conflict. We'll define the Galileo Rule itself, and then look at the practical system he used to live by it. Finally, we'll see how it completely rewrote our understanding of the universe, and, most importantly, what this rule means for us today. All right, let's start with that fundamental conflict. This massive battle between what everyone believed to be true and what Galileo could now see with his own 2 eyes. And this wasn't just some quiet academic debate. This was a head-on collision between 2 totally different ways of knowing the world. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. On one side, you have the accepted truth. The Earth is the center of everything. Period. Why? Because the authority of ancient thinkers and powerful institutions said so. It was dogma. But on the other side, you have the emerging evidence. The Earth moves around the sun. Why? Because of observation and data. This was Galileo's defining moment, realizing that these 2 columns, these 2 realities, could not coexist. One of them had to be wrong. And that conflict wasn't just intellectual. It was intensely personal. Galileo's mindset wasn't born in some comfortable study. It was forged in the fire of real-world conflict, under incredible pressure. The Galileo Rule isn't a gentle philosophy. It's a battle plan, a survival guide, born out of necessity because he was constantly under siege. So why did he even need a rule? Well, first off, he was always struggling with money. This wasn't some rich guy with a hobby. He had a family to support, which forced him to be a practical inventor, not just a thinker. Second, he was fighting this suffocating academic culture, where science meant reading ancient texts. Aristotle's word was literally worth more than what you could see for yourself. And that, of course, led to huge institutional conflict. Every time he showed his findings, he was met with ferocious opposition. He learned fast that to stand alone, his arguments couldn't just be good, they had to be bulletproof. The only way forward was evidence that was so clear, so repeatable, and so demonstrable that no one could deny it. And that brings us to the rule itself. So what is this philosophy that powered his independent thought? It's not just about being curious. It's a powerful, systematic way of thinking, and it's all built on one foundational belief about how the universe actually works. And this quote right here is the key to everything. The book of nature is written in mathematics. For Galileo, the universe wasn't some mystery that only priests or philosophers could interpret. No, it was a logical, ordered system. It was a book, and its language was math. This was an absolutely radical idea. It meant the secrets of the cosmos weren't locked away for a select few. They were solvable problems, accessible to anyone with the right tools and the right method. And from that core belief, he built his rule on 3 pillars. First, the Observational Primacy Mandate. This is simple. Evidence always wins over theory. Always. If a 1,400-year-old book says one thing, but your telescope shows you something else, the book is wrong. Period. Second, the Technological Amplification Protocol. Galileo knew our senses are limited, so he believed you had to constantly invent and improve tools to see the unseen. The telescope was a machine for generating brand new evidence. And third, the public demonstration rule. He knew he couldn't win by arguing in secret. He had to show people his proof, inviting them to look through the telescope themselves. He made his evidence public and repeatable. Okay, so having a great philosophy is one thing, but Galileo's real genius was turning these ideas into a practical daily routine. He created systems that forced him to be rigorous and precise, transforming his philosophy into an actual method for discovery. His first key system was what we can call the Systematic Motion Experimentation Protocol. Before him, falling objects were a total mystery. It all happened way too fast to measure. So what did he do? He slowed it down. He built these long, smooth inclined planes and rolled balls down them. And he measured the time with a brilliant water clock. Basically a big bucket of water with a tiny spout. He could measure incredibly small intervals of time just by weighing the water that dripped out. For the first time ever, he turned the chaos of acceleration into a clear mathematical relationship. He was literally reading the book of nature, one drop of water at a time. His second system was just as crucial, and you can really sum up its power with this one number, 20x. Now, what does that mean? It represents the incredible results of what we'll call his Continuous Instrumental Refinement Loop. See, Galileo didn't just build a telescope. He became obsessed with building a better one. He taught himself to grind his own lenses, constantly experimenting, relentlessly refining his process. He took his instrument's magnification from a blurry 3x all the way up to a powerful 20x. And this was so important because at 3x, a skeptic can say, oh, that's just a smudge. But at 20x, you can clearly see 4 moons dancing around Jupiter. At 20x, you could see the phases of Venus with such clarity that its orbit around the sun became the only possible explanation. His system didn't just find evidence, it made that evidence irrefutable. So, what was the results of all this? Well, the impact of his systematic rigor wasn't just a new theory. It was a complete rewrite of our place in the universe. And maybe more importantly, it was a brand new method for how we discover truth itself. By sticking to this rule, Galileo transformed himself and the world. He went from being a financially struggling inventor to earning the title he holds today, the father of modern observational astronomy. And you could really say the father of modern science. He's the one who institutionalized the idea that truth doesn't come from authority, it comes from quantified, repeatable experiments. And this is his ultimate legacy. This is the principle that sums up his entire life. Systematic, empirical rigor is superior to all forms of institutional and theological authority. I mean, what a radical declaration of independence for the human mind. It says truth isn't handed down. It's built, piece by piece, from measurable, verifiable evidence. Data is the highest authority. So that brings us to the final and maybe most important question. What does the Galileo Rule mean for us, right here, right now? In a world just flooded with information and misinformation, how can we apply this lesson in our own lives? Let's make this personal for a second. Just ask yourself, where in my life do I trust authority over evidence? Think about it. At your job, do you just follow best practices without ever measuring if they actually work? In your health, are you following conventional wisdom without checking your own data? What accepted truths are you holding on to that you haven't actually verified for yourself? Galileo's story really challenges us to find those areas and have the courage to look for ourselves. So the core takeaway, the directive for modern life is this: trust the evidence you can systematically measure over any accepted theory. Now, this doesn't mean rejecting all expertise. Of course not. But it does mean prioritizing direct, verifiable data when the stakes are high. It means run the experiment, check the source, and measure the results for yourself. It means having the guts to stand alone with your data until the world catches up. In the end, Galileo's legacy is built on the profound truth that authority must yield to evidence. His life gave us the Galileo Rule, a systematic blueprint to stand alone by innovating, by building a case with rigor, and by trusting the process. Because his struggle teaches us an immutable lesson, one that's as true today as it was in 1610. Demonstrable truth is the ultimate source of unassailable authority.